All right, great. So, hey everyone, my name is Jedidiah Weller. I am the founder and CEO of OpenForge and OpenForge Enterprises. And we are here today to talk to you about two things, actually. One is going to be adopting monorepos, right? And how you can go about it. We're going to actually go through and show you some like step-by-step examples of what you and your teams can do, whether you have a team of 10 or 30 or 100. These practices apply for all of you, okay? And hopefully we can save your entire company a lot of time and a lot of headache by doing this. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to show you a real live case study. And that case study is going to be through one of our projects that our parent company owns, which is Startup Wars. It is going to be unlike any other Ionic app that you have ever seen in your life. And I promise you that. You can literally quote me on that. I guarantee you, you will not have seen anything like it. And then finally, thanks to the really great efforts of Maria, Jose, and Fernando, Fernando is going to be showing you guys an open source example of a monorepo that we recommend for a structure. So that's going to be the talk, and let's get started here. So first thing, quick introductions for the three of us. I'll go first. So my name is Jedidiah Weller, like I said, founder and CEO of OpenForge and OpenForge Enterprises. And I've been a software developer since the early 90s. So I've been doing this my whole life, ever since I was a kid. And now I've obviously moved on to more software architecture, business architecture, and mobile applications in general, which is what we specialize in. And Fernando, I will pass it to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Fernando Olmo. I have been working on OpenForge like around 4 years as a software engineer. And I'm located on Spain, living on Madrid. And that's my kind of background. And I will pass to Mr. MJ.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is María José, but you can call me MJ. I'm a software engineer here at OpenForge, and I have been working with Jedi for almost a year and a half. And I'm so happy that you are here to talk with us.
Awesome, yeah. And I also just want to give a quick kudos to both MJ and Fernando. MJ has been helping to lead our architecture for Startup Wars company, which has been going amazing. It feels like longer than a year and a half at MJ. And Fernando has built so many Ionic mobile applications that we probably cannot even count them. So you are all in really good hands because they really are the experts here. All right, so first off, let's talk about, is this relevant to you? So you are here in this presentation, is this relevant? Well, let's see. Are you a director, a lead, or a senior developer in your company, right? And you're currently considering monorepos, or maybe even how to enhance your monorepo approach? Then yes, this is for you. This talk is for you. So while we get started here, I'm going to quickly talk about our team and what we provide. So if you don't know us already, OpenForge, we have been trust partners with Ionic since I believe we got beta in about 2014. And so we've been working with Ionic's team directly for years now. We specialize in only mobile. So all we do is mobile applications. We don't do anything else besides mobile apps. We do app store consulting. We do architecture and development. We also help companies with app store monetization, right? Actually, how do you take your company forward and make some money from your application if you're hitting a consumer market or even B2B. Now, for the agenda for today, we're going to be talking about the benefits of monorepos first and foremost. We'll be going over how you can save time and money, how you can enhance your collaboration between your team members, both development teams and external teams from the development side, as well as design, quality assurance, business, the business analysts and business folks, whatever the teams are, right? This can actually benefit, and we'll talk about that. We're also going to be talking about the steps to migrate, like I mentioned earlier, and resource allocation. If you guys are leads, then obviously you would probably really care about resource allocation. Then, as I said, Maria Jose is going to talk about the case study and dive into detail there. And then Fernando is going to dive into the demo repo that we have made for you. All right, quick thing about our achievements. As I said, we specialize in mobile applications. We have built so many at this point. I do not even know how many. It is all we do, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So obviously, if you guys have any mobile application needs, please go ahead and give us a call. For many people who might be wondering what we mean by helping companies with monetization, this was one of our most recent case studies. And this was a public review that they left us, where after relaunching the app, we redesigned everything. The company actually saw a 25% increase in app revenue. And this was a very, very large company. So, this was a very large impact. So that's kind of like where we can specialize. All right, so let's talk about the benefits of monorepos. Productivity and time savings. It is one of the key, most important things for any organization, right? So how do we achieve that? One of the ways is code sharing, right? So monorepos allow you to really share code, between different, different features, between different team members, right? And it allows you to kind of make everything more transparent when it comes, to your actual team. When we're talking about the on-the-ground developers and the people who are actually working on it, it allows them to easily see everything that's going on. Enhance cross-team collaboration. So what do we mean by this? So when we're talking about, let's say a design and development team, for instance, when they're working together, we have, there's a fundamental shift in mentality. And I know some of the earlier speakers were talking about this, where front-end components, they change very, very quickly, right? As you implement your application, you may go through like a brand overhaul. You may, have some modifications to your, design components, and you have to be able to make these changes very, very rapidly. Well, commonly what you'll find is if you have multiple repositories, right? Or even one single repository, but that's not quite structured well as a monorepo, you might find that, as a team member is implementing a change, like let's say implementing a new button, or let's say implementing a new component or a new feature, that they, choose an outdated button type, or they choose an outdated brand or style guide, right? Well, using monorepos, and specifically, we are huge proponents of NX and Narwhal, like Narwhal's NX. Using monorepos the right way allows you to use things such as Storybook, right? Which will allow you to basically have better collaboration between your team members. Right. It's also easy to assign ownership. And I know MJ, I think we recently did this when we did the Start Wars change, right?
That's true, Jedi. That's true, and that's having very helpful for the team in any form that you can see that. Have been amazing, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And how, like, when you assign ownership, like, what are the primary benefits, MJ?
Well, that way we can tell ourselves about who can help us and who is the person that can help when we have questions about the code that we are coding. So, for example, in our team, we have multiple persons that own not just one, but some piece of the code, and that can help me to know if I need to implement a new feature. I can talk with that person specifically, and that person can give me the guidance to implement the feature with the standards that we created before.
Yeah, absolutely. And if any of you in the audience have ever run into a situation where you might be in charge of like code reviewing a particular feature, or like an architectural change, and maybe something slips through the cracks, or you weren't quite notified the way you should have been, setting up like a monorepo and assigning code ownership, it's a lot easier to assign that type of code ownership and that automatic notification. So it really saves you a lot of time. And as we all know, like, saving time is saving money, right? Which is what this is all about, right? It's about saving developers time and saving money. It also allows you to increase your reliability. One of the primary ways of this is standardization. Okay, so when you have a single source of truth, is what we like to call it, right? When you have a single source of truth, you can standardize exactly how everything is run. You know, how do you handle your configurations? How do you handle your CI/CD? How do you handle your linting, right? When you have multiple repositories, you will, by nature of having multiple repositories, have to set the same stuff up multiple times. And it's very easy for things to get, you know, changed just by a little bit. But as developers, we all know how much of an impact even a single character can make, right? And it also will help with release management, right? You know, having all of this under a single repository really helps speed up just that like developer lifecycle and the release, you know, and the release management to know, okay, what version are you currently on, and you know what was recently committed, what was recently released. It just makes everything a lot easier. All right, so let's talk a little bit about code sharing, right? If you guys are not convinced necessarily that monorepos have some benefits, let's go through some fun scenarios. So I'm going to ask you all a series of questions and just think to yourself, is this me? So have you ever had a developer duplicate code? You know, write some code that maybe was already written somewhere else in your application. Have you ever had a deadline get pushed back due to newly discovered technical debt? You know, so you guys go through, you do Scrum planning, you do sprint planning, and you say, okay, yeah, this feature is going to be done by the end of this week. Then at the end of the week, the feature is only halfway done, and you think to yourself, ah, wow, well, why is it only halfway done? And the person says, well, you know, we discovered a lot of stuff that we didn't know about, right? You know, coming into it. You know, that again can be a result of poor organization or poor visibility, right? And if you answer no to either of these things, I would say you are totally lying. Don't lie, come on. All right, cross-team collaboration. Have you ever had issues with brand consistency? You know, again, back to the prior example, have you ever had a situation where a developer implements something that wasn't necessarily consistent with the design, but somewhere else in the application, you know, there was a correct example of it? You know, and that's basically this example. I'm jumping the gun here. You know, we've gone through this, and I do want to say at first, I was actually against monorepos. Like for a number of years, you know, I was like, I've never quite done this before, and it seemed like a big cost, and you know, a big cost to basically implement this. Finally, we did it for one of our largest, you know, projects, and yeah, the changes were amazing. And now we only do monorepos essentially. So same, let's see. Have you ever accidentally missed a pull request because you're not tagged in it? And that's what I think to MJ's point about code ownership. And I wish that maybe you could automatically have the right people tagged in the comments, okay? This is all part of like automation, right? You know, part of having this single, you know, source of truth is that you can automate all these things very, very easily. And overhead costs. So do you suffer from complicated CI/CD configurations, right? Or long ramp up cycles, okay? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then likely you are in a spot where you could really benefit from a monorepo setup, okay? And that's what we're here today to kind of talk about. Okay, so brace yourselves, we have a solution. Big Game of Thrones fan, love it, guys. So we are here today to talk to you about how to migrate your team to a monorepo architecture. And what we would like to do, wait, hold up. I just got word, Mike Hardington is not convinced. Yep, not convinced, all right. So I don't think we can talk about exactly how to do it yet. I don't think we can show you guys the steps on how to do it. I think first, maybe MJ, we need to do some more convincing. So why don't we go through and why don't we take this as an opportunity to we had fun with that one, by the way. Mike had no idea that's coming. I hope he's watching right now. And we're going to go through, we're going to show you an actual case study for Startup Wars. So before we go into the case study for Startup Wars, let me just tell you, and by the way, this project has had over 30,000 hours. This is one of our internal applications, so we're allowed to show you a little bit more of the code and of the structure than we would normally be able to with some of our enterprise projects. So really excited about that. Just a quick demo or showcase of what Start Wars is. Start Wars is an entrepreneurship simulation platform. So it is a game for future entrepreneurs to learn entrepreneurship. And I told you this is going to be unlike any Ionic application you've ever seen in your life. And I probably did not lie, right? So students, players can basically go through, they can select their avatar, they can make different business decisions. This demo itself is not really about Startup Wars, the product. I just wanted you guys to get an idea of what it is that MJ is going to show you, what it looks like from the actual, result. And obviously, if you guys have any, questions about Startup Wars itself after the fact, or how we did this with an Ionic application, please feel free to let us know. So with that said, let me go back to this here and present. And MJ, you just let me know when you want me to change the slides.
I'm here. So yeah, did I say all the symptoms that we saw in the past about deadlines, duplicated code, that's a nightmare for all of us. So I want to show you first one of the greatest results and greatest feelings that we felt when we accomplished this. In the past months, we were able to reduce our code base by 78,000 lines of code. And that's not just because we delete everything. We did that even when we were building features at the same time. That means that at the same time, when we were refactoring everything, we were creating all the new libraries, all the shared components that we want to use, we were able to, at the same time, build new features for the product. So that doesn't mean that you need to stop your business. You can still working on your current milestones, but also you can do whatever you want for your code and it's gonna be great. So I just want to show that in this first slide. And then, as Jedidiah was talking, one of the first symptoms that we noticed were that we were having 3 different repositories. So we used to have a front-end repository, a back-end repository, and an API repository. All those 3 repositories were for the same product. Of course, we are gonna use some collections, some models, some services in all of those. So we were having a lot of duplications and we were missing basically a lot of type safety because we need to get deadlines done. So that's the first symptom that we noticed. And basically what we did first was to try to get all those repositories in just a big one. That one. So in the first attempt, we accomplished to share the models that we were having in the 3 repositories, but we at that time we basically just copy and paste and did some configurations about the package.json, but we were having still a lot of code duplicated. We just solved one problem at a time. So basically what we need to do was to go more deeper and think about the roots of the project and all the components, all the libraries, all the applications that we were having to see how it's gonna be the new Startup Wars repository. So we are gonna show you in detail later what is that steps that we need to take and what is the discussion that you need to take with your team. But when we did that process, we ended up having this new folder structure. So you can see that looks way better than the other screenshots. Now you can see all the libraries that we have, all the applications that we have. You can learn and you can read easily if this library is a data access library, if it's a feature, if it's a UI library, or if it's just a util library. So that can help us to scale our application even more and add new features without worry about redo a lot of stuff. Because now that we have this separated out, we can see, okay, we can start adding features and we just reuse all the things that we already built. So that's amazing, and that was amazing for our team. And some of the benefits that we saw basically overnight were readability, scalability, a lot of less maintenance. Now you can see we were maintaining 3 repos. Now we just have 1. If I want to change a model, I just need to change 1 file. If I need to change 1 component, I just need to change 1 component. It's not 3 different components doing the same stuff in 3 different repositories. Of course, the visibility of the progress of all the projects and all the repositories and applications that we have are in 1 single source. As Jera mentioned at the beginning, we used to call this just 1 source of truth. And that's the meaning for everything that we want to accomplish. And in this monorepo, we have just 1 source of truth with this. And of course, the standardizations about naming and separation between libraries. And now I want to show you this beautiful, let's say, reactions about our team when we notice that we decrease our code base by 78,000 lines of code. I can tell you that feeling was not just amazing for the team, but also for our resource allocation, for our timing, for our milestone. Everything started to go faster. And I know that Jedi can't lie about it. We start just feeling that the project was fast as never before.
Yeah.
Because yeah, and that's something that we wanted to do before. And as Jedi say, we were at the beginning thinking about if that's the way to do it, but now we can say that of course is the way to do it if you and your team are having some of the issues and symptoms that we explained before. So now we learn a lot about this progress and about this process. We were able to apply this knowledge again, and that's the application that Fair is gonna show you. So what we did was all the knowledge that we accomplished in this big project, we want to implement it again with all our steps that we did in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other thing I want to speak to here, whoops, oh no, too quickly, is on the benefits here. You know, as MJ said, we were able to do a lot of reuse. You may, like, as an organization, you may be thinking to yourself that, hey, certain components right now do not need reuse. Like, they're only used within one part of our application. And we were actually in the same boat. One of the things that happened from an organizational standpoint is, as the product was evolving over the course of 2 years, we discovered that on our admin portal, which none of our customers see, our admin portal is where we put in all like the content for Startup Wars and all the graphics and all like that kind of thing. And the application is so large now that even our internal team can't learn every single piece of it, right? So we discovered that, okay, well, we need to actually visually represent on the admin portal, we need to visually represent what it's going to look like within the student-facing application. And this was a new business model. Well, if we had done it the traditional way, then we would have had to recreate all these components or duplicate all these components, in order to put them on the admin portal so that you can see it. But since we already had them set up in the monorepo, right, as shared libraries, even though they weren't being shared by anything else at the time, when we developed that business requirement, we said, oh my God, we can now do this so easily. Like it literally was just like a quick import and that's it. So, even if there is not, like, for some of your libraries, if you come into the situation where you think, well, I'm not sharing it right now, so I probably don't need to do it. you may in the future, and you may find actual hidden business cases in which it would make sense to do that. So I just wanted to make a point of that. All right, and I just got word that, yes, everyone, Mike Hardington is finally happy. This is his happy face. It is actually, I challenge anyone in the audience to find a picture of Mike actually smiling online. All right, everyone, keep calm and love Ionic like we do. All right, so let's talk now about steps to actually do resource allocation. I'm going to roll through these really quickly. I want to make sure that we have enough time for Fernando's section as well. And Fernando and MJ, feel free if I miss anything to just interrupt me here. So the number one thing you guys will have to do is you'll have to do some prep work. Okay, if you're migrating from a non-monorepo to a monorepo, then it's not going to be an easy day one. Okay, first you need to set aside time with your teams to identify what is the actual structure, like the folder structure, the naming convention, what libraries we actually want, right? This took us probably a week, I don't know, a week or two of time, MJ?
Yeah,
what do you say?
Probably 2 weeks. And we did like a couple iterations of that.
Yeah, it was an evolving process for sure. You know, examples of this would be applications, features, UI, utility, data access, etc. Right? Then assign code ownership. So you probably, if you're a large organization, if you probably already have code owners, but these code owners may change, right? You know, like the new structure that you're going into, you might find that a lot of things can be condensed, in which case you're going to need to prepare to say, hey, you know, MJ is going to take this over, Fernando is going to take this over, right? So just be prepared for that. And then scheduling out the actual refactoring work. This is going to be an important piece, because remember, on the first day that you create a monorepo, and we're going to talk about that in a second, the first day you create it, you're not going to be able to have a team of 40 people just start committing to it. It will be impossible, okay? So while a couple select people on your leads of your architecture team are actually creating the monorepo structure and only the structure, you can at the same time have the rest of your team working on refactoring some of the existing components to fit within the structure that you guys just identified, okay? And this is also a great time to bring in your design and quality assurance teams as well, to start talking about, hey, during this refactoring process, is there anything that we can, you know, synchronize and merge down into a simpler form for our branding and for, like, you know, our components, our UI components. All right, step 2 is going to be to create the actual repo. So like I said, we highly recommend NX and Narwhal's recommendations for how to set up a monorepo. I'm not going to go through those in depth. They have amazing documentation, and we really you know, appreciate their work in creating that documentation. One thing that we can say is that when you are creating the skeletons of the applications, and actually, you know what, I could probably even pull this up really quick. Let me just exit this and pull this over. So, you know, they have a couple different examples of like common library setups, okay? And we found that 95% of it worked for us out of the box. 5% did not. We had a phaser library and a game engine library that had to, you know, have their own custom type, but 95% did. So what I would recommend here is just make sure you read all the documentation and you really play with, you know, okay, if we do this particular structure, you know, what is it actually going to look like? And that kind of ties into this last bullet here, which is just make sure to re-review your initial architecture. After you go through and after somebody actually creates the repo, then go back to step 1, right? And make sure that you actually had it right the first time. Likely you did not, and that's okay, right? Because we know software development is ever growing and ever evolving cycle. Third thing is, again, right now you're still in the setup phase. Make sure you do this first. We made the mistake of not doing it first the first time we did this, and it hurt. Either way, this is going to hurt. Set up your enforcements, such as ESLint, StyleLint, Prettier, your configs, commit is in, CI/CD, package JSON, Husky, etc. Particularly ESLint, StyleLint, Prettier, right? These are just so important, and hopefully you already use these as an organization. But what you might find, and we found this, and every time actually we go into another application and we find the same thing, right? Whenever we're consulting, we find that in one repo, you're going to have a certain configuration for ESLint, for instance, right? And another repo, you're going to have a similar one, but it's not exactly the same, right? Because someone missed something along the lines, right? And so what that means is all of a sudden, if you try to just take all of this code and just move it over, just copy and paste it, it will not build, right? It won't pass commit. So there's ways you can go about that. And if we have time in the QA process, we can talk about that. And last thing is naming conventions. This is what MJ talked about and Fernando is going to talk about in a second. So I'm not going to really talk about it here. But what I will say is this part right here. Just when you create that empty repo, create the folder structure and create the actual components for every single component that you think you're going to have, but do not move the logic over. Because again, once you do this, you're going to now look at it and you're going to realize, hey, maybe there's actually a slightly better way of doing this, right? So it doesn't make sense to move over, all the logic until you actually have everything laid out, and it'll also make it easier for you. All right, and then you can start with the actual migration. Once you do that, you can start with the migration. You can have each team member who has been working on refactoring on the side, right? They can now start moving stuff over. And because you've already set this up as libraries, you're not going to have all the merge conflicts that you would have had before that would push you back months of time. You'll have a much better time by going with this approach. All right. And now we're going to talk about Fernando. You are going to be up here. And before Fernando jumps into this, I just want to quickly go over what the application is. The application is called Startup Glossary. We put this as an open source repo online. You'll be able to find it. We built this just for you guys. So, it's not a fully functional app, but the monorepo itself has everything. And we will be posting all of this on our website after the talk as well. So Fernando, I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right, thanks, Jedi. I'll be sharing my window. This one. Okay, so after all these guides or all the topics for the migration, we learned a lot. So we created this new project from scratch, following all the standards and all this knowledge that we learned on the process for the migration. So one thing we learned is that we can split in a single monorepo repository different apps. In this example, is just one app, is the startup glossary, as Jedi mentioned, and the one for the end-to-end testing. And then we have the libs. This is our structure. We found that we usually use data access, where we can display anything that is need to be like static data that we can import in different places on the app. We can also create models where we can import the models in all different apps, even in between the libraries. For example, there is one that glossary imports other definitions, and then you can import glossary in other part of the app. And also we can use the typical service from Angular, and we can create tons of service, and we can use them anywhere on the different apps. For example, if we have the front-end app or the back-end app or an API, whatever. Then we have the utils, and here we can create pipes, directives, enums, functions that are reusable, and it's like a helpers, like a typical function of Lodash, the same one. We can create different or tons of functions, and we can use them to help us on the other apps. Then we have the UI, as I mentioned, the different components. We create a small library of components. We have defined a category or the definition in our example, but you can extend that to different themes, different brands, whatever you want, and you can just import the module you want on your apps. So it's easy to share components between apps and reuse code instead of copy the same component and just changing sizes or styles or whatever is needed in that case. And then we found that it's easier to split also the features into modules instead of using that on the app itself. If you see on the app, it's just the app component. There is nothing else. All is split into modules on our feature library, and it's easy as just import the module. That's it. That way, we can use, for example, the home module on this app and also in other app, and will be exactly the same. The behavior will be the same. The styling will be the same. It's only one point, and you will be using that in different parts. So as long as you need to change something or update something on home, you will just updating in the library and will be reflecting those changes in the other two apps or all the apps you want to use the home module. And then the other thing that Jedidiah mentioned is about the linters and all these configurations. We found that it's easier to have a single point of truth. So we have our main ESLint, for example, that has all the rules. The same applies to tsconfig, for example. These ones are the main ones. And then, for example, on the libraries, for example, in this one, we have the ESLint and the tsconfig that is only extending the main one. So this is easier to stay, instead of maintain like 5 to 10 files differently, we only just maintain one, and this rules applies to all the files. So it's easy to maintain design standards across tons of applications, tons of libraries with just one file. It's easy only to maintain one file than tons of them. And that's mainly the new structure that we are going to follow in all the future projects, because the migration process might be hard, but this one that we started from scratch is easily than the other one, and it helps a lot in the future. So, and then just before ending, we saw the app, and this is the homepage. This is the module that is being imported from the feature library into the app side. Also, all this data and all these images are being loaded from the data access models that is being called by the service into the home module. So all the pieces comes together and is working fine. And all this helps a lot in the future, and also maintain all the features and all the code. And this is the repo that we are going to share on GitHub. And I think mostly it's all Jedidiah, so I don't have anything more to show or tell.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Fernando. And Fernando and MJ, they put together this in in a week for sure, but really only in, I don't know, maybe 8 hours each-ish.
Yes, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason I say that is the initial setup should not scare you. The actual implementation, once everyone goes through the process of deciding what is the naming convention, what are the folder structures, what's the architecture. After that, the implementation will be straightforward if you guys follow those steps that we talked about. So, it is not a super difficult process. It just is. It's more difficult from an organizational level, and especially if you don't kind of do the right steps in the right order, it can sometimes hurt. So, definitely recommend it. All right, awesome. Thank you, Fernando. So yeah, so that's basically what we have for you today. If you would like to learn more about, monorepos or OpenForge or anything we do have two things here. Obviously, you can always contact us through our website, openforge.io, but we also have a mobile academy. And this is something that's pretty new within the past couple of months. So it's been asked for by a lot of our community members. It's just a way to kind of show people and showcase common tips, common improvements for the mobile application industry. So if you are interested in that, feel free to sign up. You will not get contacted for anything except for the Mobile Academy newsletter. So yeah, and with that said, I think that is it for our presentation. So I think we'll open it up for some Q&A.